You slide a record from its sleeve. The needle drops. A trumpet note breaks the silence. It feels like pure freedom. But the real story of how that sound reached you is far stranger. Your favorite jazz hero worked for the government, not just any government, the same one that kept your ancestors in chains, the same one that still denied basic rights. And it was all part of a secret war, not fought with bullets, fought with beauty. In the 1950s, the United States faced a problem. The Soviet Union was winning the propaganda war. Soviet magazines showed images of American racism. They contrasted it with the image of freedom America claimed to export. The whole world was watching. So the State Department came up with a plan. They needed something that screamed American culture, something that felt like freedom. They chose jazz. Jazz was born from Black America. It was forged in suffering. It was the sound of resistance. But the government saw it as a weapon. Congressman from Harlem named Adam Clayton Powell Jr. first proposed the idea. He suggested sending black jazz musicians abroad. He argued it was the best way to counter Soviet lies. The State Department agreed. In 1956, Dizzy Gillespie became the first official jazz ambassador. He packed his bent trumpet and his big band. They toured the Middle East and South Asia. A historian named Penny von Eschen spent years researching this program. She called it the Jazz Ambassadors. Her book, Satchmo Blows Up the World, uncovered the deep contradictions. The tours had strict State Department instructions. Play for the crowds. Smile for the cameras. Show that a black man could travel freely and be celebrated. But back home, that same man couldn't use the same bathroom as a white person. Dizzy Gillespie knew the absurdity. In his autobiography, he wrote that he accepted the gig for the money and the music. But he also intended to show the world that race didn't define talent. He refused to be a puppet. He played with local musicians wherever he went. He jammed with Turkish trumpeters and Pakistani drummers. He let the music speak its own truth. The government had a script. The musicians often ignored it. Louis Armstrong was originally slated to be an ambassador too. But in 1957, he watched the Little Rock crisis unfold on television. He saw black children being attacked by white mobs. He saw the National Guard called in to stop them from attending school. He exploded with rage. He told a reporter, "The way they are treating my people in the South, the government can go to hell." He canceled a planned State Department tour to the Soviet Union. The government was furious. They lost their biggest star. But his defiance only made his music more powerful. It proved that jazz could never be fully tamed. Duke Ellington also toured for the State Department. He composed music inspired by the countries he visited. His Far East Suite became a classic. But even Ellington faced pressure. He had to navigate between being a diplomat and being a black artist in a racist society. The line was constantly blurred. A researcher named Ingrid Monson studied this delicate dance. In her book Freedom Sounds, she documented how jazz musicians used their tours to promote civil rights. They would speak about racism in interviews abroad. They would insist on staying in the same hotels as their white bandmates. This was radical at the time. It embarrassed the State Department. But it also forced America to confront its own hypocrisy. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union watched with alarm. They had invested heavily in their own cultural propaganda. They sent ballet troupes and classical orchestras around the world. But jazz was different. Jazz had soul. It spoke to young people in Cairo, in Calcutta, in Istanbul. It made America seem cool. The Voice of America broadcaster Willis Conover became a household name behind the Iron Curtain. His nightly jazz show was secretly the most popular program. Millions of Soviets listened to forbidden American music. They heard the sound of freedom. But they also heard the sound of struggle. That struggle resonated with them. Jazz became a symbol of rebellion against Soviet authoritarianism as well. But it carried the bitter taste of American racism. As the tours continued into the 1960s, the musicians grew bolder. They witnessed decolonization firsthand when they played in Africa. They met African leaders like Kwame Nkrumah. They saw newly independent nations rising. This experience radicalized many of them. Max Roach and Abbey Lincoln refused to participate. They called the program a sellout. Others joined and used the stage to demand justice. The music began to speak of black power. The State Department lost control of the narrative. The real betrayal was not just that the government used jazz. It was that the government never truly valued the artists. They were paid less than their worth. They were monitored by the FBI. Edgar Hoover kept files on many of them. They were celebrated abroad and surveilled at home. This double life took a toll. Some turned to drugs or drink. Some died young. The music that was used to sell America was also draining the lives of its creators. Yet the art itself refused to be a lie. The very sound of jazz carries the history of pain and resilience. You could not separate the blues from the beat. When audiences heard that sound, they heard the truth that the State Department could not edit. Dizzy's horn spoke of slavery and liberation. Ellington's compositions painted landscapes of longing. The music did the opposite of what the government intended. It undermined the American myth. It exposed the cracks. It united the downtrodden of the world. This was the point of no return. After the jazz ambassadors, the world knew America's secret. They knew that the land of the free was also the land of the unfree. Today, you put on a classic jazz record. You hear the same notes Dizzy played in Ankara, the same rhythms that shook a nightclub in Lagos. But you probably don't think about the geopolitics. You think about the weekend. You think about love. You think about the mood. The algorithm feeds you the next track. It doesn't know the history. It doesn't know the cost. But your ears can know. If you listen closely, you hear a sound that was born in chains. A sound that was used to sell empire. A sound that betrayed its creators. And a sound that, despite everything, told the truth. The needle is still spinning. The trumpet note hangs in the air. It still feels like freedom. But now you know, freedom is never just a sound. It is a battle. And that battle was fought on a global stage, sometimes by the very people who were not free themselves. So the next time you hear that horn, remember the man behind it. He was playing for his life and for yours. He was working for the government, but he was working for you. And the music never forgot. So now, neither should you. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. A new story every week.